All right, so I just read over real quick on your form. Looks like some tension between the child and your dog.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So he's not ever actually bit her or snapped, but he doesn't let her anywhere near him. He shakes and shows his teeth and growls when she gets close to him. If he could be laying with us for hours and we're petting him, and if she comes close and even tries to put her hand on him, he'll jump up and run away.
Mhm.
Um, and now that behavior is sorry, mute my phone. That behavior is starting to um, kind of work its way into other aspects of life as well. Like the other day, he bit my aunt in the leg really badly. So
Okay.
and he was never really like this before. I mean, he's always been anxious, and we don't know his backstory at all. But I think once we had our daughter, his behavior's gotten even worse.
Sure. How bad was that bite in the leg?
Pretty bad. Like it broke skin and it swelled up a little bit afterwards. And all she did was
Was it
she just walked in the front door.
punctures?
Punctures, yeah.
Is she okay?
Oh yeah, she's totally fine.
Okay. And did she walk in unannounced?
Unannounced, yeah.
Had she ever done this before?
Um, no, that's probably the first time that he had ever encountered her in that type of situation, to be fair. But and there was a couple other times during that same trip where it happened, where he attempted to bite other people as well. So our this is at my parents' house, and our parents are having some work done in the back of the house, and a couple of the construction workers, they would come to the door, and he would just dart at them immediately.
Hello.
I was trying to listen in as I was dealing with my toddler, but the one thing I do want to mention besides hi, I'm Allison, is like he really is triggered by men in construction boots. So I'm convinced that the reason why he bit Nikki's aunt is because he was super on edge from earlier that day. But yeah, as Nikki mentioned with Ella, like that's the main concern. When she's feeding him treats and when they're playing with his toy, he's fine, but otherwise he does not care for her.
Okay. So this was at your parents' house. They're having construction done. There's workers walking around, and then that's when you saw the other attempts.
Exactly. Yeah, and he does that essentially anytime we're there, and a construction worker will come to the door, no matter who it is. If they walk into the house, he immediately starts barking crazy and just like runs at them and goes directly for their legs. But thankfully they've never been hurt because they always have construction boots on. So,
but he does go and like,
like legitimately tries to bite. Yeah, it's not like just barking where he like literally attacks and bites their boots. Same thing that he did to my aunt. It's just that she wasn't wearing any, and so he got her really badly.
Did you get on what part of the foot or the leg?
He got her on like the
it
thigh.
Was above
he jumped
her
up.
knee.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first real bite he's had where he's made contact, but there's been several attempts.
Exactly. Yeah. If it weren't for boots, he would have had probably 3 or 4.
How long have you had him for?
We've had Lars for about 2 years. He's going to be 7 in February, and we got him. That's almost 3 years.
Almost 3. Yeah, we got him in February of 2018.
Almost 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Like 2 and like 9 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And you say you don't know his background, like whether or not he came from a family with kids or anything like that?
No, they didn't have any of the information.
Okay. And then you said since you got him, you noticed he's been an anxious dog.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And we've tried giving him that prescription drug before, but he throws up from it.
Trazodone, fluoxetine.
The first one, yeah.
And then we tried giving him CBD tincture, but he like refused to eat that. As soon as he sensed it in his food, he wouldn't eat it.
Okay.
Yeah, just like on a regular basis. What around us, he's okay, but when he's not with us, like if we have to give him, I can't say it right now because he'll freak out, a TREAT before we can even leave the house. Otherwise, he freaks out. He shakes. He works himself up into such a stupor that he vomits. So we actually thought he had a stomach problem, and continually went to the vet. They did all kinds of tests on him. They ruled everything out, and the vet was like, he's just anxious, and he gets so anxious that he literally makes himself vomit.
Yep, it happens. Other than the trazodone, the CBD, have you tried any training prior? Anything on your own?
There was like a 4-class session through pause that was like sit, lay.
Yeah, so just like no. Standard so you're stuff.
Yeah, so no.
So, and that's where you got him from, was pause?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else I should know about? And I'm sorry, what's this guy's name again?
Lars.
That's right. That's the Metallica drummer.
That's what he's named after. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. When I was going through the consultation, that's the first thing I thought was just Lars.
Exactly. Well, he acts like him too, and he's like running around all anxious. You know, it's just like
That's cool. Very original. Okay. Anything else about Lars here other than he's a ex-Metallica drummer?
I think that covers it.
I do. I mean, this is like so stupid, but like the motherly instinct to me wants to, like, he's the most lovable, cuddly boy. Like he sleeps with us every night. He comes up, he curls on my head. He loves me more than he loves like anything in this world. Yeah. So he's not like just a dick all the time. He's really, and same with my mother-in-law and my sister and my dad, like our family, he loves our family. He just doesn't like our daughter.
That's exactly right. And also when he gets anxious, he marks everywhere inside.
Sure. You know. And this is when you're home or when you're absent?
Absent.
Okay. And then one last thing with the ant that he bit in the leg, had he met that ant before?
Yeah, but he hadn't seen her in probably almost a year, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, she is kind of a bitch.
Put that in the notes.
May the records
so with quarantine and stuff, have you noticed an escalation in his behavior?
No, he's been like loving it because he loves when we're home all the time. It's gonna if I ever get another job, then it'll be tough, you know, for him to be alone again, but he loves it. His behavior's been like awesome. And so he hasn't marked in the house because we've not gone anywhere, you know.
Okay. And what makes you believe he's anxious?
So he'll whine and whine and whine and like come up at us and like really whimper when this is probably sounding stupid now that I'm saying it out loud, but like if he is demanding to go out, he's just like very, very needy. Or like if there's people vacuuming in the stairwell of our condo building, he'll just like whimper and stare at the door the whole time.
But also even more, like, you know how a lot of dogs can like sense when you're going on a trip and like when you're packing and stuff like that, they like run around and pant and don't leave your side. He does that every time we're packing to go anywhere, but he does that a lot, like that type of activity, that same type of stuff throughout the day. If other things happen, and they don't have to be like big game-changing things like that, like I can't even think of an example.
I can think of an example, actually. That's a good point. So when Ella wakes up from her nap, he'll immediately jump into that mode. Every single day after Ella wakes up from her nap and he hears her wake up from his nap, like he wants to go outside. He doesn't even need to go outside at 2:30 or 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. And he's like going back and forth, going crazy because Ella just woke up from her nap.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I would classify that as anxious behavior. Okay. So before reaching out, did you guys do any research on me?
Sorry, she just had to go run and look at her daughter. She okay?
Be careful. Okay. Chew that really good. Chew that.
She would be the one to answer the question.
You were actually recommended. I don't even know how they heard of you, but my friend Monica Dollywall recommended me to you, and then we were perusing on the website. I actually don't think that she just got a dog. I don't think she's used you, but
that name sounds familiar.
Maybe
I may have read it maybe in the form or something, but that name, or maybe they followed us on Instagram because I've seen that name somewhere.
Oh, that could totally be it, yeah.
So okay, so here, this is for me like pretty common stuff. This is like what I deal with on a regular basis. So in regards of like how I go about dog training and everything like that, is I want to give you an idea of the realistic expectations as well as like minimum and maximum what you can expect. Because when it comes to stuff like this, I think people think they'll hire a trainer, their dog will be good, and then life's easy peasy.
Right.
And they don't do anything anymore. That's not how it works.
Right.
Okay. So here, just going through all the things, I would agree you have a primarily anxious dog who's also a little bit nervous. Okay. So like think of it like it's kind of like graph. A dog could be low fear but like high anxious and like medium nervousness type of deal. Like they have like just different characteristics. So from what you're telling me, he seems more of an anxious dog with a little bit of nervousness.
Yeah.
So I agree with Allison when you said you believe he was worked up with the workers and then your aunt came in. We would call that residual tension or unresolved tension. It has to go somewhere. And I think what the breaking point is that she walked in unannounced.
Yeah.
Okay. So it can be either, yes, it was because of unresolved tension and he had to let it go somewhere and she just happened to be the person, or he was actually just doing his job. Okay. Mm-hmm. So to give you an example, I had a client that worked with me a few years ago. And then I believe last July, they sent me an email because they were concerned that their dog was going to attack their daughter. And they just had a daughter, like she was less than a year old. And then I was like, well, why? And they said, well, he bit someone. And they had originally hired me to because they thought he was aggressive. And I told them he wasn't aggressive. And then, a few years after training, he bit somebody. So I was like, well, tell me what happened. And I'm already in my head thinking like, this is around 4th of July. So I'm assuming this has to do something with the holiday because a lot of dogs don't like the fireworks.
Right.
So what ended up happening was they were out of town. They were at the Airbnb with a few friends. Everybody was gone. The dog was left unattended in the Airbnb without a kennel. It was the 4th of July day. And a friend of theirs came over to like drop off something and like pick up toothpaste or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was hiding under the table and they kind of like did what any other person would do. Like, oh, hey, and he just came out and bit the person, I think a couple times on the hand and then on the thigh.
Jeez.
So then when I heard that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense to me. Because, and then their dog hated 4th of July because he was an anxious dog. And they said, coincidentally, they're like, he was so calm when they came home when typically he would be really worked up because of the fireworks. And I said, yep, all this makes sense. I was like, he was in an unknown environment. He was kenneled. He was being territorial. He was technically doing his job, protecting the home, right? Because nobody is there. He's also very stressed because of the fireworks. And all that tension was released in the bites, right? He was like, kind of like for a person, like if you're like really upset, like just a good yell might make you feel better, right? So I told him, I was like, had this been a burglar, this would be a totally different conversation.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
You'd be praising it. Yeah.
The dog does not understand that it was a friend. Because think of it this way. Take your best friend, okay? And at 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear a weird sound and you go down and you see your best friend in your kitchen without any, like you're completely unknown to this. How do you feel about it?
Like surprised, but like it's funny. Like, why are you here?
I would be suspicious.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'm thinking of my sister.
Well, yeah, you're thinking of family, right?
I'm thinking of family.
Yeah.
When somebody says best friend, I think my sister. But I get you. I got you.
Yeah. And then I was like, so that's the same thing for the dog because it's out of context, right? Like even if it was something the dog had seen before, which was why I had asked, had he seen the aunt before? How many meetings had there been? Because I'm trying to get background on that, right?
Yeah, he's certainly not familiar with her. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be either one of those. So I don't hold that against Lars.
Yeah.
Okay. Because let's say somebody walked into my home unannounced and my dog would bit them. I was like, well, why did you just walk in? Right. And I understand this was
I like that a lot.
So, but that's dog nature, because dogs are black and white. In the human world, you know, because we know who it is, like, you know, oh, this is Amazon and they come every day. Like, you don't have to bark at Amazon. The dog don't know that. The dog's just like, who is this person showing up on our steps? Right.
Yeah.
So, and they will never learn that. So dogs are either completely social, love everyone, everything, no one's a threat, right? Or you get dogs that are suspicious, or dogs that are suspicious but more so more confident to act on it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that bite on the leg, I don't hold it against Lars. It's unfortunate, but to me, it all makes sense, because I go, yes, either he was really stressed out because no one told him to cut the crap with the construction workers. He had to go somewhere, and either the aunt was on the receiving end of it, or he was just doing his job and said, yo, you just walked in. Here we go. Right.
Yeah.
Questions on that?
My question would just be to your earlier point, and this is like, you know, why we're looking forward to discussing different like plans and programs with you. But I wonder if you could just shed a little light on, like, how would we have told him to cut the crap with a construction worker? Like, I don't think we're very effective at being like, Lars, no. Like, I get like guttural with my like voice, and that's like,
he doesn't care. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: Have you ever seen another dog tell another dog no?
Oh, right. This is why Aunt Renee growls at hair dog.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dogs tell each other no. They don't say, hi, how are you? They don't, say, how's your day? They don't say, how you doing? So dogs bite each other, right? They growl, they bark, they bite, to keep things simple. So when people come into the home and Lars acts out, okay? So let's say they knock or they ring the doorbell. I'm assuming he barks in response.
Every time. Yep.
Yeah. And that will always happen, because at 5:30, my cousin's coming over, my sister's coming over, right? So at 5:15, 5:20, when you hear that buzzer, it doesn't surprise you, because you're like, oh, they're just a little early. But Lars will never know that.
He doesn't have the context, right? Okay, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then he's gonna start barking, and he's like, hey, something's out of the norm, right? So then what happens is he kicks into alert suspicion. So then when you open the door and it's a construction worker, for example, and he's like, I don't know who you are. And you're like, come on in, the water thing's over there. And he's just like, and it sounds stupid, but even though you opened the door and invited the guest in, he does not see that.
Right.
He's just like, who let in the threat? And then he's biting at them, because he's like, hey, get out of my house. Right. He's trying to establish a rule here. And the reason why he's unable to kind of like snap into like, oh, it's just a person, is because, like, I'm sure you've probably been to a friend's house whose dog is super friendly. You'll hear the bark, but as soon as they open the door and the dog sees a human, they're like, oh, I like people.
Yeah.
They don't care who it is. They're just like, I like people. So they shift from suspicion to I like people, right? But Lars isn't that personality type. He's more suspicious, which is healthy in my opinion. It's fine. It's just you have to know how to stop it. So so essentially what you would do there with Lars is you would give him the same conversation that he's giving your guest. Because he's going, this is my home, this is my house, what are you doing walking around it, right? So technically, before you even open the door, you would confront Lars, and there's more to this. You would confront him to communicate with him, hey, thanks for letting me know someone is here, but I got this. You need to chill out and respect my guest.
Okay, that's interesting to know.
Yeah.
And
that's more body language based.
Sure.
Got it. Okay.
Now, one thing I didn't tell Nikki, and we still have time, I know, in our call, so let me know if you're going to get to this later, but the use of that collar, I haven't done any research on that. And my initial, of course, immediate concern is like, if Lars has a history of abuse, I don't know. He might not.
Doesn't
He might.
matter.
I don't know. Is that going to be triggering for him because he's being hurt?
Nope, doesn't matter.
Awesome.
Okay, because one, it's all about how you apply the tool. And I've had dogs that were completely mistrained, quote unquote abused with the tool of the e-collar, right?
Oh,
Which
okay.
does set down, and this is what not just like general abuse, but like uh, uh, the trainer that the owner was working with was just completely just not using it correctly, right? So we know for a fact that it happened. And then I come in and I go, it sucks, and we're gonna have to get over this kind of hump because yes, your dog has a what's the word, a previous experience that was negative with the collar, but you can always relearn something, right? So like let's say you go to a restaurant and you have a bad experience, right? And you're like, oh, I don't like that place. Because most people tend to go by bad experiences and they go more so by positive.
Yeah.
And then maybe someone convinces you to try it again. And you go back and you have a really good experience. Now that balances things out, right? And if you're like, okay, I'll give them another shot, and you have another great experience.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point. But it's obviously like, how do I put this stuff? I sound like an idiot. Like with our daughter, we would never use corporal punishment. Like I got soap in the mouth, I got spanked when I was a kid, but like we're never going to be physical with our daughter for discipline. So with a dog, I know it's different, but I guess I'm just looking for like, what's your one soundbite as to how it's not like abusive to the dog to like shock them or whatever?
So one, you're not shocking them.
Okay.
It's not electricity. Okay. It's not like a taser. It's not like a sticking your finger in an outlet with a fork or something.
Okay.
It's actually a miniaturized TENS unit, which they use on humans. So you're familiar with TENS units?
Yeah, I love TENS units. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a muscle contraction.
That sounds so much better. Yeah,
I was thinking about
then instead of like electric shock.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah. That's the people. So there's a reason why it's called a shock collar. One, when they first came out, they were not as refined as they are today.
Right.
Okay.
Before they had like 3 or 5 settings. Now we have 127.
Wow.
Okay. So think of 3 or 5 back in the day, right? 3 or 5 and 127 are the same, but I have 122 more breaks. Okay. So it's really refined. Whereas before it was either, uncomfortable, more uncomfortable. Now it's hurting. Now it really hurts. Now shit, that really hurts. Right.
Yeah.
So that was because it was more of like shocking in terms of like how it was used and all that stuff. And also there's just the whole positive reinforcement realm of dog training. And they use terms like torture, harm, hurtful, shocking, or whatever, to deter people from using these tools.
Yeah.
And I've built my career. I mean, I'm 10 years into my career with this tool. It's the only tool that I train with after a dog is 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because for puppies under 6 months, it's easy peasy, food-based treats, crate, potty training, whatever.
That's what we tried with him, but he was already 4 and he did not care.
Yeah. After 6 months, I always go to remote collar.
Okay.
Got it.
Because, if you go to the doctor and you have something that needs to be fixed or whatever, and they give you like 3 options, and they go, this has a 5% success, this has a 25% success, and this has a 90 to 95% success rate. Which one are you going to pick?
Right.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Right. So remote for me is the 90+% of success. Okay. Because it's easy for the owner to use. I get off leash reliability right off the bat. And we can tailor it to the dog. Right. So like my Chihuahua is 8 pounds. He's trained on an e-collar. He's completely off leash trained.
Wow.
Okay. And he's trained to, don't want to say to the same level because he doesn't know as much as my pit. But in terms of off leash reliability for like the standard command, sit, stay down, come place, whatever, him and my pit are on the same level. And she's 60 pounds.
Wow.
Okay. So, and there's a video of me on my YouTube where I'm walking 4 dogs off leash. And I used to do this every morning because I used to live in the South Loop. I used to go down Grant Park over the bridge of the metro to the lakefront, all the way to the river, up in the river, up to the downtown area, back with all my dogs off leash, but they were all locked in position. They never left my side.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
Wow. Okay.
Now, obviously, does everybody want to train their dog to that degree? No.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm able to achieve those results relatively easy and in a short amount of time because of e-collar.
That's really helpful to know.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's really good to know.
Yeah. And if you go to my YouTube channel, so like we've been because of COVID and stuff, we started recording our training sessions or whatever. You could just go to my YouTube channel, they're uncut. So if someone has any apprehensions of it, and I'm like, just watch a video.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
To be honest, I haven't done that yet. So after you sharing that, I for sure will do that. That's
that's
really
awesome.
helpful.
And I worked with what is he, like a Yorkie?
He's a
He's
Yorkie.
a full Yorkie, yeah.
I have a Yorkie on there. His name's Bogey. He was a few months back, and they were having issues with him and like attacking the owners when they would close the kennel. And I think he was like an 8 to 12 pound Yorkie. He was a small guy, but he was being trained in the e-collar as well. It's a little bit difficult for those smaller guys. It looked like Lars was probably like 15 to 20 pounds.
He's like 11 or 12. He's probably like 12 pounds now. I think 11.
He's long, and he's like 11, maybe 12.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Boki actually might have been smaller because he didn't look as big as Lars did there. But they were training him on the e-collar as well. So in terms of like the abuse, your question of when does it become abuse? It becomes abuse when you make it abuse.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I was raised old school too. I was spanked. And when I look back on it, I never look back on it and go like, no, that was out of hand. Like I go, yeah, I deserve that. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm better for it. But I've had friends who've told me their experiences, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like when I got spanked.
Right.
You know, like
that's actually a really interesting perspective. So it's a matter of like context.
Yeah.
Correct. So like, you know, I've had to, because I deal with like very aggressive like dogs. And people think that we come in and like it's just like, you know, max out the collar and just like, you know, punish and make the dog yelp and stuff.
Yeah, right.
How it works.
Okay.
Even when I get really aggressive cases, it doesn't work that way.
Okay, that's such a relief because I was talking to this one girl when we were in Pennsylvania, and she was like, well, I just get nervous about training because how do you know that they're not going to like traumatize these dogs and abuse the dogs? And she like planted this seed in my head, and then I like
Nah, it's just people being dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yeah, it gets really complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
But you know, which is why I love the fact that we're recording everything now, because you know, trainers like myself do get a lot of flack because of the tools that we use, and they're saying all these like this is how they use it and stuff. But I'm like, well, here's my training session. Did I use it that way? Right. Now, you might find a dog where we do use it that way, but there's usually almost always a process before we get to that point. Okay. So I'll give you an example. I have a dog, her name's Malachite. She just wrapped up her last class. Very, very dog reactive. Okay. Like shrieking, just very reactive.
Yeah.
And 4 classes in, the owner was still struggling with reactivity because we're trying to do it the patient way, you know, taking our time, trying to figure out what's going to work. So then I only had 6 classes with her. So I go, okay, we already tried all the nice guy stuff. I was like, now what we're going to do is you're going to max out the collar at 127. And every time your dog looks at a dog, you're just going to remote her at 127, which is max power, right? And then within the session, you saw the immediate difference from that approach to the approaches that we were using earlier, which were more so like nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's what she needed. That's what she needed.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That'll be interesting with Lars. Will you let him in, by the way? He's scratching the door.
Yeah. See, he's anxious right now.
It will be interesting with Lars because he's got like obviously our main. Did he go away?
He left.
Obviously, our main concern is when he shows his teeth at Ella and when he gets really territorial with her. But also, like, he's very
dog reactive like that. Yeah. He like when we're walking, he pulls so hard if another dog is around, and
there's just one dog
he'll start instantly.
But he loves Yorkies.
Yeah, he does.
He only likes people just like him. But yeah, there's certain dogs that he just like fucking hates for no reason.
Is he walked on a harness?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's most likely why.
Oh.
Harnesses pulling for one.
Sorry, my internet sucks. You cut out for a second. Harness is what?
Promote pulling.
Huh.
Wow.
And also, even if it says no pull, like a no pull harness, that's an oxymoron because harnesses are meant for pulling. and it creates more agitation.
Huh.
So, and I get for Yorkies because they're known for the claspable tracheas.
That's why we did it. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
afraid of choking him. Yeah.
Yeah, is which is fine. It's understandable. But what happens is because I get a lot of people that get puppies, and most people walk their puppies on a harness because they don't want their puppies to put pressure on their throats. Which again, I get it. But what ends up happening is every time that puppy sees a dog and you pull back, it creates negative tension. And over the course of time, as that puppy is growing, it starts to associate that negative tension of being pulled back with dogs. So it goes from the average like friendly puppy that wants to play with everyone and everything to a frustrated puppy to an agitated puppy to an aggressive dog over the course of the dog's life.
So
like anytime I talk to people who have an aggressive dog or dog aggressive dog, and they had him from a puppy, one of the things I'll ask them is, did you walk your puppy in a harness? And then I'll say, give that same layout. And they're like, that's exactly what happened with my dog.
Wow.
And we do this in protection training. So like when people train dogs to attack people on command, we use a harness.
Huh.
Yeah, because it creates more. It's like in the movies where they hold someone back and they're like, let me at them,
Yeah.
Exact same thing.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's wild.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if that's something that we would even cover together, or if the main focus are all of the things we're mentioning to you
Interconnected?
enmeshed? Are they interconnected, or are they all separate?
In a way, the hardest one actually out of all of this is your daughter.
Yeah.
I know.
Right? Because that is a coexistence that would be forever, right? Until Lars passes.
Yeah.
So how old is your daughter, by the way?
She's almost 2.
She's 2. Okay, so she's been around for a while with Lars.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to explain now how this stuff works.
Right.
Okay, so the reactivity is actually the easiest thing to fix. Okay, that's the easiest thing to fix because he just needs formal training on that, which is like obedience stuff.
Yeah.
The people coming into the home is easier because I don't need them to like the person. I just need them to leave them alone.
Right.
Yeah.
With your daughter, you're trying to cultivate a relationship.
Right.
That's the hardest part. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I can't make Lars like your daughter.
Yeah.
I'm assuming her energy is probably typical of a 2-year-old.
Extremely high, always, nonstop. Yeah.
And that's most likely a lot of why he's like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So if your daughter was another puppy, right? And whether it's the puppy was behaving that same, just like they don't know their mechanics and like kind of all over the place, Lars would bite that puppy. And he would say like, and that's not aggression. That's him saying, don't behave that way around me. Okay.
Interesting.
My dogs,
Yeah.
my dogs would do that to that same puppy. Okay. Now people perceive it and read it as aggressive, but that's how they raise their puppies.
Right.
Okay. And so like when people get puppies, they think you can't discipline them, but you absolutely can because another dog would. Okay. So this is why if you ever see a puppy or a dog at the dog park, and they're being too rambunctious with another dog, you might see that dog snap at that dog.
Right.
And they're saying, don't behave that way with me. Okay. In the human world, we don't do that. So dogs and animals, like they regulate each other. They regulate themselves, right? But humans, we have cops or we have authorities that we would contact, right? So if someone's harassing you, you're told not to escalate the situation, but to call the cops, right? But in the dog world, if a dog is being harassed, they just bite that dog. And then it becomes, are we going to fight about this, right? And if the other dog decides to reciprocate and it's a fight, then it's like they're going to fight till someone loses. Okay, that's primal. That's dog. Even for a dog like Lars.
Right.
Okay, because people see cute little Yorkie, and I see dog. I see primitive animal.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Definitely.
That does make sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
In my head, what my tactic has been is that like I am training Ella, do not ever touch his face, do not ever go near him when he's in his bed. I'm wondering if even after our time together, when we move forward, if I'm still going to always have to just try to train Ella, that unfortunately you're never allowed to be with Lars.
Or at least maybe
by
until she's
yourself.
older and less rambunctious.
Yes to both.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the reason that is I don't care if your dog is the friendliest dog in the world. Okay, because this is a very common misconception. And you're talking to someone who has heard many horror stories of children being bit.
Right.
Okay? So you raising your child to ask for permission or to respect Lars is actually very healthy. Okay.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Nice.
I want you to think this. Here's an example. I had a client. They were telling me the story because they thought it was very heartwarming, but it was terrible. And then later on, you'll see what happens. So the kid used to use the dog as a stair. Okay, so the dog would sleep at the base of the kitchen cabinets, and to get something off the counter, the kid would step on the dog, right? And then when they would step off, they're laughing. They're like, "Oh, the dog would." It's like you would hear the dog just take this breath because the weight was lifted. I'm like, that is terrible.
yeah.
Fast forward a little bit, the kid did the same thing with their neighbor's dog.
Oh no!
Guess what happened?
Oh
yeah, kid got bit pretty good.
Oh,
but guess who got the flack for it?
The dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know this is unrelated to the story, but was everything okay with that dog, or did they give the dog away? I hate when people give the dog away.
Everything was fine with the dog, but it was a very, they were considering it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, it all makes sense of why that would happen, right? I was like, this is why, because your child will treat other dogs, right? Whether it's a friend's dog or a dog, they don't know, like they treat their own dog. Okay.
That's good.
Because you know what? Thank you for that.
That's really good.
So, and I tell everybody, even if you had the friendliest golden, and this conversation was just about obedience training, right? I tell people, teach your child to ask for permission to pet your own dog.
Yeah.
Pet your own dog. Love it.
Yeah, because they're going to carry that to other dogs. Okay. And I've seen kids because I used to do training at Oz Park out in the summer, kids just running up to random dogs.
I know.
That's why kids get bit.
That's happened to me before, and I'm like,
kids run up to him all the time, and we have to ask them to not, because we don't know what he's going to do. Because he looks so little and cute, they just think they can do it. So that's always
that's really good.
thing.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And just to let you know, because most people want to approach things politely, and I understand why. Is I get that too. And when I get a little kid charging towards my dog, I give them a very impolite, firm, curt no. You're not going to touch my dog.
Yeah.
And to make it a very unpleasant experience. Okay.
You know what?
To help. Yeah. Yeah.
I will do that to pay it forward, because you're always not. Because I wouldn't want that kid to do it to somebody else's dog, and then that's
exactly
I like that.
Okay, and then of course I get looked at as the bad guy.
Right.
But people are ignorant; they don't understand. And if they want to take the time to ask and go oh, sorry, but why were you so rude? I'll be more than happy to explain it to them.
Yeah.
Right. And the dog world gets very complicated, but regardless of your dog's behavior, what you're teaching your daughter is very healthy.
Okay, great.
That's awesome to hear.
I was like, when we were home in Pennsylvania, everyone's trying to tell us oh, well, that's a shame that Ella will go her whole life and Lars will never.
And she doesn't have experience with him and all stuff. But it's he doesn't like it, and so we don't want her to jump all over him.
No, yeah, and there you go. He doesn't like it, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is, people think that I have a dog, I should be able to do whatever I want to and with my dog.
Right.
Yeah. I go, no. I'm like, you wouldn't do that to another human. You wouldn't do say that to your wife. This is my wife. I get to do whatever I want, whenever I want with my wife.
Right.
That's not the case. Everybody has rules and boundaries, right? And if you really care about someone, you respect those rules and boundaries, right?
I love that, because in our heads we're trying to be oh, well, seriously, you're like our therapist right now. In our heads, we're trying to be oh, well, Lars should do this. He should do that.
Yeah.
And it's no, that's not. We don't. Yeah. Would it help? if when we got him, they gave us a number from the Humane Society. They knew zero information, but they said, here's a number. They do not accept phone calls. You would have to drive 45 minutes out, which we couldn't do. But you could go to the Humane Society and find out more of his history. Like, would it help you if we did that? And
doesn't work. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know more about his past, feel free to, but it doesn't help me any.
Gotcha.
Because Lars is about right now.
Yeah, that's. I don't want to know more about his past. He's our dog.
Yeah.
You know?
I just didn't know if
he's one of us. You know?
No, he's not like a human where he thinks about the past or the future.
Okay, good.
He's just present, right? So like if your daughter's not around and he's in there cuddling with you, he's nice and relaxed, right?
Yeah.
As soon as your daughter enters the space, all of a sudden, like, ooh, I'm anxious.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And then you remove your daughter, he might be a little anxious until he settles, and then he goes back to being Lars.
Correct.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Yeah. So that's pretty typical. So the stuff that I care about is there's a way or ways to try to cultivate a relationship between them, but we cannot make that happen.
Yeah.
Touching on your point, saying when you said when she's older and not as rambunctious, right? That's actually correct.
Okay.
So most people try to push their dog socializing with their child immediately. That's why you see those like Instagram photos of the baby sleeping next to the dog or the puppy. I hate those pictures because they're putting their baby in a very precarious position.
Right.
Like there's a video on the internet of this baby crawling, and you see the lab. It's like a yellow lab, and the lab's just like doing this.
Yes,
right?
I saw that.
Then it finally, and there's clear signs saying like, I really don't like this baby crawling next to me.
Yes.
And it went after the baby, right? But that's what it would do with the puppy.
Yeah.
Okay. Like dogs don't. So like for us, we wouldn't correct a baby like that because they don't have motor function, right? Like they don't understand. Like if I pull this earring out of your ear, right? They don't understand that hurts. So you can't discipline a baby for that. Right. But at the age of like 2 to 3 years old or whatever, when kids start to understand the concept of right and wrong, then you start adding consequence because now the child can process that. Right. Okay. So, but for puppies, they do this as young as 3 to 4 weeks, where they process what they can and can't do.
Wow.
It happens very young, and then the way they go, the way they communicate is through biting.
Yeah.
It just doesn't transfer well in the human world.
Right.
But yeah. So what I would do with Lars and your daughter is, I would continue with the positive stuff. Gentle, teaching her how to be respectful. Again, this is stuff that she would apply to another dog. It would always be in controlled context, even if it was, again, even if it was a friendly golden or whatever, right? I always tell people, never let your child interact with the dog unattended.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because that's when stuff usually happens, and you don't know why, because you weren't there.
Right.
So then possibly over time, when she's not as rambunctious and her energy starts to settle, you might start to see Lars not be anxious anymore because she's not giving off that energy. Okay. And this is very common. Okay. It's very common. So that for me isn't something I'm too concerned about. I think you're on the right path with educating your daughter on appropriate and polite behavior, because that's what's going to keep her safe.
Okay. I like that. Educating on appropriate and polite behavior. I like that.
Because if you try to force it on Lars too much, you can create another problem. Because then he's like, now I really don't like you because, if you come and pet me and I do this, I get a consequence, which isn't wrong. But then it starts to make him feel like there aren't options.
Right.
Okay. So like if he gets up and leaves the room, good.
Yeah.
Because that's better than going after her and biting her.
That's typically what he does.
See, and that's good. And where
typically he does just pick. Oh yeah, thanks. He'd pick typically just if she comes around him, he gets up and see it.
And I'm glad to hear you say that, because in my head I'm like, oh, that's sad. Like we should all know. Yeah.
I mean, if you're at the store and you see someone you don't want to talk to, what do you do?
Right.
He does it
down a different aisle. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have 4 responses to things. We have fight, flight, avoidance, submission. Okay. So fight would be like biting. Flight would be completely running away. Mm-hmm. Avoidance is I'm going to just go down this aisle, right, to avoid the person. I'm not going to leave the store. And then submission is just you accept it's going to happen and you don't do anything about it. Okay. So he's just using a flight avoidance response, which is fine. It's healthy. And then actually another story, I had a client whose dog was doing the same thing with the baby. It was a newborn baby. And then I told them, when your baby starts crawling, that's when you want to be mindful, because that's typically when dogs start to like get uneasy. Because now this immobile thing.
When she was a newborn, he didn't care because she wasn't
You're
moving around. Yeah.
Yeah. So once the baby starts to move, things get weird because puppies mature very quickly. Within days or whatever, they're walking.
Right.
Whereas babies, it's months.
Right.
So then what happened was the baby was crawling, he started climbing, the dog kept avoiding the baby. But then one day, and I told him not to let this happen, but they gave too much trust. The baby cornered the dog on the corner of a couch and started pulling at him. And they thought that everything was going fine until he bit the baby in the face.
Oh, jeez.
Did they keep the dog?
Trapped. Yeah, they kept the dog, but they sent the dog to the grandma.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I told them, I said, when your baby starts crawling, that's when you're going to start to see some tension. And I was like, your dog is doing a healthy thing by avoiding the situation. But if your baby traps the dog, now there's no other option but to fight. That's what happened.
Oh,
jeez, yeah.
That's
Yeah. So, in terms of like how I go about this, the leash reactivity again is the easiest thing. Okay. That's just formal leash walking obedience, using the e-collar. The having people come over is really simple. I just teach you how to, what's the word? How to have that communication of like, hey, thanks for letting us know. Yeah. This is our guest, whatever. You're going to not bite our guests and stuff.
Yeah.
And then after that, we can work on socialization exercises to see if we can get them to warm up to your daughter. Usually probably a class or two, if that, because it's all about time and repetition.
Right.
Okay. And then if there's anything else that you wanted to cover, you would just tell me. Otherwise, the only other thing that a dog should know is recall or come when called. But that only applies like if you're going to be with Lars out at the park and he's running around and all that stuff. You don't want your dog to run away and not be able to get him to come back.
Right.
Okay. But if that's not a part of his life, then it's like not really
do that stuff. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. But can I ask you that, because maybe that could be a goal for long term. Like, is that healthy for dogs' mental psyche to be able to like run around and play in dog parks? Because we don't do that with Lars. Like we're always too afraid, so we never have like done that.
So dogs aren't meant to be in a house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Lars isn't even meant to look the way he looks.
Right.
This is all just human manipulation. Right. A dog and I'm not trying to guilt you or anything. Like I have.
No,
totally.
But I would, if all Lars knows is the inside of your home, like, and again, he's not dwelling on this. He's not going like, man, every other dog is to go to the dog park, right? Because the dog park is a big variable. Like some dogs love it, some dogs don't. There's also people that take dogs to dog parks that shouldn't even be there. So these are all factors. I go by, if you had Lars more well trained, you would involve him in more things.
Yeah.
Right. So like a lot of my clients want to walk their dog, but they don't because they're reactive or they're pulling and they're like, I had one dog break an owner's shoulder 3 times in 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't want to touch this dog. Right. And then we train them and then they're walking their dog all the time. They're taking their dog to the park. Their dog's getting to play with other dogs. They get to take their dog to restaurants.
I feel like
right?
I get stressed to walk him.
Now the dog has a life outside of just the home.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, really, really quick sidebar, just because you're an expert. I am curious, with a dog in a city that's mostly in the home all day, how many walks per day, like, and what length do you recommend?
I usually do an hour per day, divided how you want.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Yeah, so you do 3 20-minute walks. You can do one long 1 hour walk.
He's
getting that. Yeah. He's getting that for sure. He's just not, running free. Although we do trespass on this one dog run and he loves it. He goes back and forth. But okay, thank you. I was just curious.
So in terms of like length of time and that stuff, if all you're caring about is really just trying to get down the core behaviors, my 6-week program, because I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week program. Okay. The 6-week one is about where you're at, unless if you're wanting more stuff. If you did 6, it would be 2 on the leash walking, which would address the reactivity, potentially a third on reactivity if you're struggling with something, but I doubt it here. 1 on people coming over, and then maybe possibly 1 or 2 on working with your daughter to see, does his behavior change after we start the discipline? I doubt it, but there's always potential there. Yeah. Which leaves us 1 or 2 classes to cover something that you would want, like, recall or whatever it is. And then if you wanted to like more control in terms of obedience, because there's six commands: heel, come, sit, stay, down, and place. Those are the 6 family pet commands. Okay. So if you're like, yeah, we'd like to like, make a gentleman out of this dog and have him formally trained, and he learns everything, then that's the 12-week program. If it's like, no, we just want to like have good recall and maybe like something where we can take them to a restaurant, then that's like more like the 9-week program. But for what you're having, what you've like given me so far, and like just like kind of prioritizing that stuff, it would be the 6 classes.
Yeah, I feel good about that.
Okay.
Remind me the rate, because I remember seeing the 3-week, but remind me the rate for the 6-week.
Oh, off the top of my head, at my facility, I believe it's $925.75 ish. And then if it's in person in the home, I believe that's $1,200.
Got it. Okay. Do you recommend like with effectiveness, one versus the other, like in the home versus at the facility? Like is in
your case. So the one that has to be done in the home is when people come over. So the way we've done that is I'm here via Zoom, and then I send one of my employees.
Oh,
okay. Cool. Okay. And that helps fulfill that one with people coming over, so you get to practice that.
Yeah.
And then like, you could always bring your daughter here to the facility or whatever. Unless you want the convenience of me traveling out to you, it really doesn't, in my opinion, matter. Yeah.
Are the with the 6-week, because I trust that like that's the one that like is makes the most sense.
Yeah.
What's the cadence of like, do you do them every single week, or are they spaced out? Like,
so typically it's let's say you pick the time with Maria that worked well for everybody. Let's say it was Monday at like 4:00, whatever. Every Monday at 4:00 for 6 weeks plus 1, so 7 weeks, that's your time. Okay. But like, let's say you have to cancel or reschedule, we give you an extra week because we understand things happen. Okay. But if you were to cancel, reschedule more than one class, by the end of your 7-week priority, because that's what we're doing, is we're giving you priority over a time, is you would lose that priority and you would still have the classes if you canceled on time. But Maria will just contact you and say like, hey, you've used the priority, you have 2 classes lleft over. These are other times that Jesse's available, because
you just schedule at will.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes sense. Because before we used to hold the time and I used to get backed up.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell people this is your time slot, and if you reschedule or cancel, that's fine. But then once you lose priority, I have to keep my calendar rolling. We'll put someone in if needed. If no one needs it, then it's fine. We just keep you on the same time slot.
Yeah.
But like evenings after 5 and Saturday and Sundays tend to be very busy.
That makes sense. And so that would lead me to my next question, which is, it's probably important for both of us to be present with
Ideally, yes.
Yeah. Then you have to be
the nice thing is that because we do record the sessions, is that if one of you can't make it, you just watch the session.
So if something comes up at work or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't want to like reschedule or anything like that. And then if you ever struggle with anything, I can always send you another client's video to watch, to help you kind of get an idea of like, this is what we're trying to achieve.
Great.
So it's like a little bit like a kind of like a database of information.
You have set my mind at ease so much.
Me too.
I'm really, I think we're probably prepared to move forward with the 6 week.
I am, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then just make sure that we're, on the same page. Realistically speaking, okay, I cannot make Lars like your daughter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing that we can do. I think you're on the right track just with what you're doing already.
Okay.
So don't worry about trying to force that. Lars will come around if he decides to come around.
Yeah.
And as your daughter matures, that will obviously help quite a bit. The people coming over, not a problem. I work on that stuff all the time. The reactivity on the leash shouldn't be a problem either. Just remember that I can only take you as far as you're willing to go. So if Lars, for whatever reason, needed to have a higher level of a correction, if you don't do that, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Last thing is, people always ask, when does the e-collar go away? And in my book, when you need it, it doesn't. Okay. So meaning when you take Lars for walks, if you don't want him to be a reactive little barky jerk, he's got the collar on. Okay. And I liken it to a cop on a collar. So do you guys drive?
Yep.
Do you go the speed limit?
Nope.
If you see a squad car, what happens?
You immediately slow down.
Yeah.
Right. So that's called opportunistic behavior. Okay. All animals do it. So Lars will learn when that collar is on, he has to behave himself, much like if a cop were present. And then when you remove it, he's going to learn he can press the boundaries, right? Again, only when you need it. So if he's out on a walk, if he's out at the park running around, if you have guests coming over, that's when you would need it. Otherwise, if he's a good dog, you don't need it.
Yep.
And you take it off, or you always leave it on?
Yeah, no, you just remove it.
Got it.
You only put it on as needed, as a deterrent.
Okay.
Without even having
Okay.
to
Sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and then Maria will send you the make and model of the collar I suggest for Lars. You said he's 11 to 12 pounds?
Yes.
Yeah. He's probably gained a little bit of weight. I'd say he's still 11.
Still
11
Yeah, he's a small guy. The collar I'd recommend for you runs around 237-ish with tax.
Okay.
It's waterproof, half-mile range, LED screen, so you get exact numbers. They last for years, so it's a little bit pricey, but they will last. They last a long time. I've had mine for 8 years, no problems.
Oh wow.
Cool. Okay.
So I have to get. I have another client coming right now, guys. So if you have any questions, you let me know. Otherwise, nothing out the ordinary here. I think now that you understand where Lars is coming from on a primitive scale, it's kind of cleared up some of those things.
Yeah.
The thing is, he's also only 12 pounds, so not the most dangerous dog in the block.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Even a small dog. I had a Chihuahua, a 4-pound Chihuahua, bit the dog walker in the thumb and took out the nail.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Sent them to the ER. Yeah. So, small dogs can still do harm.
Right, yeah.
But yeah. And then if anything pops up, you let us know. And then Maria will take care of you, okay?
Amazing.
It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah,
Thanks
this was
again.
awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care. Have a good evening.
You too. Talk to you soon.
Bye.